I just found out my girlfriend is my half-sister. Throwaway, obviously. I just found out a few hours ago and my girlfriend and I are currently a mental wreck. Quick background. My girlfriend, I'll refer to her as Sarah, and I have been dating for a little over than a year and our relationship has been going very well. We both happen to come from the same town and met each other in college after being introduced by a mutual friend of ours. Here's where the feud begins to unravel. Last year for Christmas, Sarah decided to come over and stay with me at my apartment for the holidays. I also had decided not to go home for the holidays either. Plus, all my other roommates were back home visiting family, so we had the whole place to ourselves. It was perfect. Christmas Day rolls around and Sarah had bought the both of us 23andMe DNA kits. The thing is that we were both conceived by in vitro fertilization via sperm donors. Both of our fathers were infertile, so our parents had no choice. Deep down, the both of us were hoping to find our biological fathers through the service. Fast forward less than a month later to today, and both of our results are in. Sarah comes over to spend the weekend and we go through our results together on our laptops. We compare our ancestry and health reports and nothing seems off. I even found out I'm 2% Native American. All was well until we arrived at the DNA relative section. Sarah tightly holds my hand and says, "I hope we both find our fathers." Then I open mine up. At the top of my screen, I see Sarah's name, per 7% a shared half-sister. Sarah starts hysterically laughing and tells me to stop joking. I don't react to anything she says and just stare at my screen in disbelief. I then abruptly grab her laptop and open up her DNA relative section. We see the same thing. My name at the top, 27% a shared half-brother. At this moment my brain just completely short-circuits. I've been having intimacy with my half-sister. Holy fricking poop. WTF. My mind starts going at 100 miles per hour and I began hyperventilating, going into a state of shock. I can't even remember what Sarah was doing at this time. It's pretty self-explanatory by now, but for those of you who don't understand how we could be related, it turns out our moms were probably both fertilized by the same sperm sample. What are the freaking odds, right? The fact that we're from the same town certainly increased the odds, but still. 6 hours later, just typing this entire post makes my body shiver. There are no words I have to express what my mental state is now. To put it in simple words, I feel traumatized. Part of me still won't stop thinking about how much I love Sarah, and then I realize our entire relationship was siblings loving. I honestly feel disgusted standing in my own skin. I've even been contemplating suicide. Sarah and I haven't talked at all since going into shock. Right as I'm finishing up this post, Sarah has grabbed her stuff and left my apartment a few moments ago. I'm probably not going to respond to any of your comments, questions for now, and I honestly want to be left alone in the corner of my room. I really just needed a place to vent all this. Edit, my mates just came home and are giving me support. Edit 2, rip inbox. Thank you all so much for the support. I just logged back in and didn't really expect this post to blow up. Last night was rough. Sarah's friend roommate called letting me know Sarah was home. As of now, Sarah and I still haven't talked. But after a night of thinking, I believe I've come to terms with what we've discovered. For those of you who still think this is fake, I honestly wish it was. Here's a screenshot showing our shared DNA. I think the best way for Sarah and I to heal is to go back home, our town, and see how this all began with our families. Only then will we be able to accept the reality. I'll post more updates as things develop. Update. First things first, just wow. I can't thank you all enough for the support through the kind comments and messages. I wish I could reply to all of them, but there are just too many. I'll answer some common questions I received towards the end of the post, but I'll first start with where we left off. After a long, dreadful night full of surprises, I woke up the next morning questioning everything. I called bullshit on the test and immediately called Sarah. She picks up telling me she's already booked an appointment with a genetic counselor. Good, we're both on the same page. The next day, we meet with the genetic counselor specifying in patients who take tests with commercial companies. TLDR of what she said was, while the ancestry reports can be interpreted with a degree of skepticism, DNA matches are determined directly through the raw DNA data, meaning the connection is either there or it isn't. We asked if there was a possibility that we contaminated each other's samples. She said that our samples would have been flagged by the system. Apparently that's easy to spot. Even if our contaminated samples magically made it through the system, we would have been shown to be sharing completely identical segments, while 23andMe showed we only share half-identical segments. It was basically confirmed by a specialist at this point, and the same feeling of dread I had the other night began to set in again. My friend called an hour later, telling Sarah and I to upload our raw data to a third-party DNA site online as extra confirmation. We did just that, and surprise, surprise, we're shown as being half-siblings. Sarah and I spent the rest of the day calling both of our parents and explaining everything. We all came to the conclusion of Sarah and I taking a weekend trip back home to see how this all started. This idea came to me the same night when the whole ordeal began. Ever since that night, Sarah and I, understandably, haven't been the same. I've been trying to mentally cope with my emotions. The logic part of me is telling me, siblings loving bad, not right, break up, while emotionally I still love Sarah. I'm having this constant battle in my head, And I'm sure Sarah is too. All of this was especially apparent when Friday rolled around. We both packed our bags and hopped into my car. During our entire drive up north towards home, not a single freaking word from the both of us. 5 hours later, we finally made it to Sarah's house, the agreed meeting destination. Right before we exit the car, my brain decides to short circuit. I grab Sarah's hand and lean in to kiss her. She stops me, looks me in the eyes, and after a brief pause while teary-eyed says, "No matter what the outcome of all this will be, I'll be leaving having gained a brother." That shit hit me hard. We both hug each other and start crying. For the first time in nearly a week, I felt some kind of relief while simultaneously thinking, WTF is going on? Sarah and I, both being the emotional meatbags we are, stop hugging and head inside before one of us mentally breaks down again. 2 hours later, my parents arrive, and we all sit down and formally meet for the first time. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention how this is the first time both my parents and I are meeting Sarah's family? Imagine how freaking awkward that shit is. I'll spare you all the cringeful details of all of us trying to make the whole situation a normal conversation. Both of our mothers brought the sperm donor IDs. For those of you who don't know what that is, when a woman has received a sperm donor sample from a cryobank, it comes with a ID that is unique to that specific donor. Our mothers compare the IDs and they're a match. Sarah and I were conceived from the same donor, which we had already guessed to be the case. The rest of the night was spent discussing what to do going on. As much as I still had feelings for her, Sarah and I came to the conclusion of breaking up. We decided to go to a bi-weekly counseling therapist to help us get past all this crap and transition into a sibling relationship. We spent the rest of our weekend catching up with our families and headed back to uni on Monday. As of now, 12 days later, Sarah and I are going to therapy together, and we've maintained a friendly relationship, still keeping in touch throughout the week. Mentally, we're both much better but still have a long way to go. It's too early to tell, but I have hope for the future. Conda, Q, when were you both conceived? A, we were both conceived a month apart and born 5 weeks apart. Q, do you guys look alike? A, no, not really. The only thing we have in common are our somewhat similar noses. Q, what were your ancestry results? A, IDK, why this was a really common question I got through PM, but here you go. Q, what town are you both from? A, no. Q, why do you both care? You should stay together. A, there's no way that's happening in this society, nor do I want it to happen. We'd have to deal with social and even legal problems depending on the state. Also, we'd run the risk of conceiving a genetically unhealthy child if we chose to have kids. Q, were you two able to find your biological father? A, Sarah and I didn't match closely in terms of first cousins and up with anyone else on 23andMe, and as of now we no longer have a desire to find our bio-father. The genetic counselor mentioned we should keep an eye out for any future half-siblings taking the test.